I love to refer to it as like, an emotional Yosemite Sam. Like there's so many gyms that I saw people have 18-month members with. And these members would come in. They go hard in the paint, bang, 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 Yosemite style. And then they're fucking burnt out.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, wait, this was a lifetime program, right? No, they're back at spin class. They're back at yoga. Not that those...
fuck that. I'm never doing that
Totally.
again, right?
They're done. They've shot their emotional bullets.
What episode was Kenny on previous? Man, play a flute man, Greg. Flute, get your flute man, Greg. Oh, you're scaring me.
Oh, podcast is starting. We haven't been doing anything.
This is the greatest band of all time?
That's right, Kenny. That band right there, dear sir.
We can't wait to have them on. Barbell Shrugged.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe, staying here with Doug Larson, Chris Moore, CTP behind the camera. Oh, we got another one, Charlotte. Whisper. And we have Kenny Kane.
Yes.
We're back
Kenny.
again.
It's good to be back from episodes 1, 3, 5, 7, 11,
We didn't hate
13,
you.
and 23.
We didn't hate you after the last one, so we thought it'd be cool to bring you back on.
Great
It's
to be
been
back
about a
on.
year, right?
Yeah, it's been about a year. I think.
Almost. That was the games last year.
Yeah, I think it was July of last year.
And now it's the Super Regional.
Yeah, it's getting kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You left, as I think a lot of us did, after the treadmill event.
We had podcasts to do.
I was pinned to my seat with excitement and anxiety and apprehension. Who will win the 1 mile treadmill jog? It was all right.
Oh, my God.
It was all right. Test of fitness, you know?
Can't believe we went there right off the bat.
Well, no, I mean, not to put it that way, but I mean, it was.
Right.
I mean, that was just what happened. But the good news is we got here and we got to play with Chris's kids. I got to be a Wolverine.
Very excited.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got to play alley-oop in the back.
I like the Bad News Bears feel. dribble like, I don't know what I'm getting. Now let's do one with the head. Let's do it with the head. Okay.
And
I didn't hit one shot, man. I feel demasculated, and my street game is whack. I got to work on my mechanics on my shot. My layup is pathetic.
have any of your followers seen you guys play?
I sure hope not.
Yeah.
It's more like performance art.
We did not put that out on purpose.
But it's kind of cool.
The best
That's how you
part of
throw the
my
ball.
game today was just making one white man can't jump reference. That's the only thing I could put together that was of value in any way. The shots were garbage.
A lot of
Garbage shots.
I immediately went to the kick because I'm a huge fan of basketball, but I'm going to have greater odds kicking the ball into the basket than I am
You know, I
shooting the ball.
figure if you're not that talented, replace it with novelty and circus tricks. I
Absolutely.
like your style, Kenny.
That's what I do. Come on. That's what it was.
No, you came out hot. If you would have made that, I'm like, oh my God, you went for it. You would have blown us all the way right off the bat.
And I was
if you
just
miss
about
it,
to.
you don't lose anything.
Exactly.
It's a good strategy.
And here's the thing. I did make an alley-oop, and I know fived Adam.
Huh?
I know fived Adam.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Andy Galpin.
Andy. I mean, would I just
Dr.
call you
Adam. Dr. Adam Galpin.
I know fived. Doctor. I'm making up guys.
You know, we really bonded out there on the court.
Danny did great.
Me and Adam
That
got
guy
together.
Danny did
We found a lot in common. We both want to change the world through fitness. Me and Adam.
Oh, my God. All right. Before we go any further, It's going to get better.
It's time to start the show.
Just so you know.
So loose.
Go to barbellshrug.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can stay updated about all the cool stuff that's happening. Maybe
Indeed.
you'll figure out where we're going to be at next.
That's right.
I doubt it.
Coming to town near you, maybe. I don't
No,
know. In the future.
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah. But we're here to talk to Kenny Kane. Mm-hmm. And it looks like you've drawn some interesting things on the board.
This guy loves triangles.
We're like, hey, we like to write on the board before the show to plan shows. And so he just picked up chalk and started drawing. I was like, okay.
Very nice
But
triangle.
I have gotten to see some of your explanation you put on a seminar for coaching, not just program design, but coaching. And I got to sit in on the last few hours one day, maybe 2 hours. And just what I saw at the tail end, I was like, this is different. I really like what's going on here. Yeah.
And you've been coaching for like 30 years.
Yeah.
So
we should
to
probably
add some context to
Yeah.
this, you've been in the game for pretty much as long as I've been
Say
alive.
1984.
Yeah, that was when I first started coaching.
I was 3 years old when you started coaching.
Yeah, I was.
So, despite like what your background may be or philosophy, just to be interacting with people
yeah.
on a consistent basis for that long is extraordinary.
Yeah, and the weird thing is you don't really think about it. You just start. Like for me, like Doug, I started kind of as a martial artist and soccer player, but in martial arts,
Cobra Kai Academy. Right?
Cobra Kai Academy. Yes.
Sweep the leg. Right.
There was lots
That
of
his
sweeping
move.
of the leg. But, the thing is about martial arts is that, age doesn't necessarily matter. It just sort of experience and rank does.
Yeah.
And so, I got my black belt when I was 14. And what that meant is that in our dojo, we had to teach adult classes. Whenever you got your black belt, you became an instructor. It was just sort of back then. That's sort of what happened. I don't know if that would be legal or anything like that at this point. But back then, if you're a black belt, you had to teach. And so for me, I got my chops as a 15-year-old kid having to spar against guys that were 2 times my size. And I'm the
Thrown into the
instructor.
deep end?
Yeah, thrown into the deep end, and they want to punch their sophomore high school instructor in the throat. And so I think just by kind of being thrown into the deep end through martial arts, and then at the same point I started coaching soccer. We had some really good youth development soccer in Santa Rosa where I grew up. And at that point, coupled with the experience of being raised by my mom, which I think I might have explained in the last episode, but she's got like the greatest coaching eye I've ever seen.
Kick-ass yoga instructor. And
What's that?
well, she's a yoga instructor, right?
No,
Or was it not?
no. She's like she's in the swimming Hall
yeah.
of Fame. But like,
That's very different than yoga. Chris.
Yeah, I know. I realize that now. Was it like fucking yoga, bro? No, swimming and oh yeah, sorry.
but she did also No 5 Adam.
Oh yeah. That Adam fellow you met was very nice, Kenny. Very nice.
Totally. But no. She could spot like bad movement in any sport. And I remember watching, my friends in high school participate in different sports, and she was breaking down what was going on in their body. And just by being around her and her sort of knowledge of the human movement, I guess I was sort of soaking that up and learning along the way. And my grandfather was the manager of the 6'8" Olympic team for swimming, and so I just sort of grew up around sort of Olympic caliber athletes and coaches, and was sort of exposed early on. And that's the type of thing where you don't realize that you're getting exposed to coaching, to physiology, to anatomy, to human movement. You're just around it and you're soaking it up.
You see people that committed, like that's their life.
Totally.
Probably had to make a huge impression on you.
It did.
What it takes to get to that level.
It did. And then, I was really motivated as an athlete growing up, and I made it to like a sub-national class level as an athlete in a couple different sports, but I was never extraordinary in any one of them. And so I think that's one of the things that really
Not to brag, but I was almost pretty awesome at many things.
No, I was all right, but I wasn't great. I really wasn't. I mean, I was a decent soccer player, decent track athlete,
Call
decent
me
martial
Jack.
artist, but it was that sort of varied exposure that helped me. I had to coach. I could always coach higher than I could perform in any of the sports that I did.
A lot of value there with that experience, for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of good coaches are usually people who aren't necessarily that great as athletes. I think that's common in all sports.
It's okay to find something you struggle with. Like you don't have, if it didn't quite go the way, committing, if it's CrossFit for 3 to 5 years and going on a journey, if it doesn't come out the way you thought, you still learn infinite amounts, even if it's
So
all
much.
struggle and zero success by
So
whatever
much.
you call it.
Yeah.
For sure.
If you just try one single way and it works the first time, then
You learn nothing.
probably understand how to do that way, maybe.
Right.
But if you try and it doesn't work, and then you have to try something else, and then eventually you figure it out over the course of months or years, then now you actually understand all these different approaches and perspectives. So when you get a wide variety of athletes, you understand how to offer different solutions if they can't figure something out.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's what's happened in sort of this part of my career, because there's like such a variety of populations that I've touched. Like a big part of my career right now, I've coached Olympic athletes and a lot of celebrities, preparing them for like movie roles. Coached a team to the CrossFit Games in 2011.
Well, contrast.
Coach, yeah, it's
experiences.
huge. Coach Corey Reed, who's an adaptive athlete, about 3-4 years ago, and he was like one of the first adaptive athletes to compete in able body competition.
That's
and
awesome.
that stretched me as a coach
Yeah.
because
sure.
he
Yeah.
couldn't see. And so he had heard about me, and then they came, and I started coaching him. I'm like, man, I can't
Well,
physically
what a challenge when
demonstrate.
somebody's missing a fundamental sense. So how do you communicate
Totally.
movement without a whole set of cues? That's
And
fascinating.
it was
20% right there. Gone.
Crazy. And so, push my coaching threshold to a dimension that I didn't really know possible, and so much of it was just touch, feel, and like the intuitive art of coaching. Like you have to feel when somebody's not seeing, you have to kind of be empathic enough to understand, how am I going to bridge the gap from where they're at physically, point A, and get them to point D or E.
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this idea right now. I don't think I've ever had a challenge like that in coaching. And part of me is like, man, maybe I should.
I think it's a beautiful
Something
thing.
to try.
It's
That's
something to
crazy.
stick out.
He's actually a guy that you guys should have on the show, because first of all, he's a really inspirational guy, and at the time we were doing something that hadn't really been done. And I mean, he showed up with he's missing a leg, and he's blind, and he had vision for 21 years of his life, and then got in a drunk driving accident. His best friend was drunk. They were partying, driving home, like literally, I think it was a half mile from their house. Go over train tracks at 70 miles an hour, run into a tree. He wakes up a month later after being in a coma, minus leg, minus vision. Fast forward 7 years. It's like
That's heavy.
It's really heavy. And so he comes, and there's a moment, and I've been there a few times with athletes, but I call it the orb. The orb is a place of it's a conduit to a deeper layer of self, where an athlete goes to a place that they've never experienced.
I think you found the orb in Peru. Did you mind? You found an orb of some
Found a
kind.
few orbs.
Okay. Well, apparently there's a lot of ways to get there.
Yeah, many portals.
Ours was a 500-meter row, but
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what your portal was.
You should do that.
I've
plus the
accessed many portals different ways. I don't know.
Well, that moment between him and I, and I classify the orb off of a book called Once a Runner, and it's about this sort of rite of passage that this athlete has to go through. His coach gives him an impossible number.
Once a runner, you said.
Once a runner. And there's a point where the coach says, okay, you're going to do 2400s. And the athlete says, okay, does 2400s. And then the coach goes, you're going to do another 2400s.
Wow.
And they're supposed to be at like 60-second pace with 1 minute rest or whatever it was.
Which is brutal.
Oh, dude, it's
I did similar stuff, not that many reps, but for football. I know what that feels like.
24.
And
then
so-
another 24.
And then he wound up doing, I think it was 100 in the book. And there was a
100
point,
100s?
100. No, 100 400s.
You said 20 400s.
20
not 24.
400s. No.
Hundreds.
2400s.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Okay.
Jesus.
Yes.
That's a whole different. That's a whole different deal.
2400
That's
is
a ridiculous
a
amount.
big
Ridiculous.
deal.
Huge volume, right?
Whoa.
And so during that experience, it was a crucible that allowed him to see a deeper level of self. Now, what the coach did is he left the athlete to himself and said, you're not done. You have X amount left, and then leaves him out. It's this
In a
like,
world of his own
in his own
suffering.
Yeah, in his world of his own suffering, and he's just to stay on the thing and find this sort of pounding rhythm, and through it, everything's condensed into a moment of singularity, where it's like focus is so unified that he's just able to literally follow the orb, and so he's running, following this thing around the track, and so.
Hallucinating, chasing dragons.
Yeah, no. I mean, just there's that level of clarity where everything's
That's
possible and
intense.
nothing's impossible. Yeah. And I had a moment like that with Corey, and we had gone through a lot because we gave ourselves basically just under 3 months to prepare for this competition, And in that time, we had to learn everything CrossFit. So he had some lifting experience and some strength and conditioning experience, but he had no CrossFit experience. So he didn't know a snatch, he didn't know a double under, he didn't know a wall ball, he didn't know a box jump. And these were all things that we're teaching him in this condensed time period.
Wow.
Like, okay, here's a box, you're going to jump on it. Sorry, you don't have sight, but you got to jump on it. And, all these experiences start to pile up.
You
And
coach everything opposite. Like, you just say, you see how I'm doing my hand, do it like this, or whatever. You can imagine all the scenarios where you have to rethink how you propose what you would coach.
Well,
it's extraordinary.
And for me, it pushed. Like, I always look at athletes and mechanically in one way. I go, okay, it's a checklist that I go through as a coach, like ankles, hips, shoulders, and from there you can see everything, right? Especially if you got a coach's eye, you're able to spot, any kind of dysfunction to the extremity. And for him, because of the missing leg, his proprioception was completely tilted going up. Like, we did thrust drills and track drills where I'd send him across the gym and say, okay, you're going to do high knees across. But if his prosthetic was off just a little bit, like, he'd kind of veer 30 degrees into the dumbbells, so it's just like, so we had to really, really work on finding not the feeling so much in his feet and then on his prosthetic foot, but more in his hips. And so we did everything to focus on where's your center in your hips, which is the center of all human movement. That's been talked about for 5,000 years. But with him in particular, not using the ground as that sort of proprioceptive piece, but the hips as a proprioceptive piece. Then he could work back down and find his feet. So it was like, it was a great sort of reversal for me. And then once we sort of discovered that, we could fix all this stuff physically. But the real growth is when we got to that session where he went and I do a drill. It's basically a mental toughness drill where you row for 500 for time. And then whatever time you've rowed that 500 in, you come back and you try to match that in meters. And then you come back and try to match those meters in time. And so ideally with 3 minutes rest, everybody's hitting 500 meters at the exact same time. But inevitably people get physiologically pretty fried because that sincere glycolytic effort. And then additionally, mentally, you're on that rower, and monostructural activity does a lot to destroy one's psyche. So on this third effort, he basically went to a place that he had never been to, and he PR'd on his row by, I think it was 18 seconds. So on the third one. So he was a conduit to something that was way greater than anything he had ever sort of experienced as an athlete. And so after that, like, he finished, and there was that sort of thing that happens to all of us after something like that, is that physical exhaustion. But then beyond it was this sort of cathartic breakthrough where he just starts emoting and tears, and this reservoir of pain is the levee of pain is sort of like broken, and now he's just flooding like the gym with all this emotionality. And I viewed that as a point like, okay, cool, now I can access this athlete and really get to the stuff that we need to get to.
I think he was kind of caged up by what he thought he would now be capable of after this thing happened to him that was horrible. Maybe he felt guilt because maybe he feels like it's his situation that he put himself in and that happened. So maybe this was just like, I can still do plenty. Like a big opening up, unlocking moment.
Huge. It was just like it was the recognizing of what's possible, and also just a release of old self. Like we as human beings, we emotionally just bind this stuff up and we hold it and we hold it and we hold it, and then it shows up physically in multiple manifestations. Everything from hormonal imbalances to performance imbalances to just general sense of fatigue. And after something like that, you can talk to an athlete in a completely different way.
What's also extraordinary about it, man, it's like, even if you can't reach what you once were, it's a good lesson in there's always the next best thing you can do right now.
Right.
Like, what can I do now? What am I capable of now? There's what I can't do, and that's not possible anymore. Fine, but making the most of what you can do now and relearning things again.
Right.
Like, up front, you wouldn't think it'd be so satisfying, but everything I've ever seen out of psychology was people go through any kind of physical injury that's paralysis, it's anything. Compared to people of great fortune, when these people return to baseline function, they can now walk and get to the store.
Right.
And now, in this case, use his body to generate force again. There's nothing you're ever going to do in your life more satisfying and rewarding than that.
Right.
Even before you were capable of squatting 800 pounds, like now, squatting, period, is the biggest reward you could ever ask for.
Right.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it was certainly it helped me develop just sort of my coaching philosophy, and congruent with that, I started like considering what was happening in the sort of in the CrossFit world, and like how I had been sort of brought up as a coach, looking at the pyramid that I have behind me, and so that experience with Corey, and that experience just with a variety of athletes, being exposed to martial arts early, understanding like empathy as a coaching tool, and that basic like, wow, like the one thing that CrossFit does better than anything I've ever seen is it contains the physical, but and the beautiful, most elegant thing about CrossFit is it's the black box theory. Put in a stimulus, get an adaptation, and within that, it also in many ways doesn't necessarily consider the mental and the emotional qualities of human existence. And it's a black box. It's a theory. It's stimulus, adaptation, and that's what happens when homeostasis, when everything is.
You're talking about like this is physiological stuff we're talking about, but most people are only thinking about that. They're not considering
the mind,
the mind, emotion. Like most of us have like. I've got a pregnant wife right now, and there's like I haven't.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, and but her pregnancy has been absolutely brutal. So what that means is like our sleep is completely unbroken. She is having a horrific pregnancy, as much as we're getting great tools to help facilitate
and it sucks because it's all out of your control.
It's completely out of our control.
Like you did anything to cause it.
Totally.
That's where a lot of frustration comes from. Well, beside the initial thing. Okay,
I don't think it'd be possible without him, to be honest.
There was a series of events.
That's not that one
detail.
It had nothing to do with you.
Right. But and that's difficult for both of us because we're both people that have like to exercise a lot of control in our life, and then here she is as like an Olympic level athlete, and now she's completely like it's all like she can't. There's so much just beyond her. That
could be good for you in the long run too. By the way, I mean,
unequivocally believe that it will be, and it'll be great for her because it's just she's learning so much about herself, and we're learning so much about ourselves. It's like stretching our capacity.
Yeah.
But for me personally, just training and stuff. I mean, it's just like I'm all over the place.
No PRs being set at the moment.
It's just like
Doug will agree. I'll agree. It goes out the window.
Right.
Man, when these guys, when their wives got pregnant, I didn't hit any PRs either.
But man, these guys are bringing down my vibe.
He was so depressed.
I didn't get that party nearly as much. I was like, you want to go out? No.
Was it like that for you guys though? Like, was there undulation and not as like a victim of like circumstance, but just like sort of a change in sort of training, or was it?
I've been pretty lucky so far in the fact that I have not had the experience that I feel like a lot of people have had.
You said that the other day, yeah.
Yeah, like
I feel like you're really lucky, yeah.
My wife had a kid 3 months ago, and I've slept fantastic for like the last year. A lot of people probably just heard that.
People
are
like,
fuck that
they're
guy.
taking their iPhone and throwing it out the window.
That's right.
We both have really
like, I always
awesome
sleep good.
wives who do a lot of great work with
My
those
wife
kids.
is the shit. Like,
Save
she
our
takes care
asses,
of everything
honest
for
with
me
you.
and just lets me go have fun all the time.
Shout out to Janie and Marcy. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
But that said, even if you're not doing too much, even if you're just laying there, you're going to hear like terrifying screaming, screeching at 3 a.m. a lot of the time, and you're not getting 8 crisp hours of sleep. And it's okay because it's an acute thing. You have to, I think, I've learned that if you just back off and be fair to yourself, you can recover well enough to at least preserve strength.
Right.
Like, that's a good thing. As long as you're doing something productive, even in times that aren't ideal, you can preserve. And you can set up a good foundation for when in 6 months it'll be better. So you can set up that time scale, and you'll be fine. If you just get over, today's not the best day. Okay, that's okay. That's fair. In 2 months, you're fine. You can be better than you are before you had the kid.
And I think, you've got a great tool set to sort of understand that. And as we're sort of talking about this, one of the considerations was that, a lot of people, a lot of the population that's following functional fitness of any kind doesn't necessarily have that awareness or tool set. And so I started thinking like, well, how can we sort of change this? And I started thinking directly, how can I change that with the population that I have direct control of, which is CrossFit Los Angeles? And so, we did the games in 2011, which stretched me as a coach. Worked with Corey in 2012, which stretched me as a coach. And then, through that summer of 2012, I started thinking about like what is missing in CrossFit coaching, what's happening in the market. And then I started realizing a lot of things. And so I wrote this up.
So once we come back from our break, we will check out those things.
Okay.
Those things we were supposed to check out like 20 minutes ago.
20 minutes ago. Right. Boom.
Today we are doing kind of like part 2 of the last episode where we went over glute activation exercises. Today, me and Chris are going to go over
Got a lot of activating to do.
glutes. He has lots of glutes. We're going to go over activation for, I'll say your glute medius, but really there's probably a whole lot of other muscles that are contributing to this. Your glute medius and all of your hip external rotators are kind of on the outside of your hip here. Certainly your glute contributes to that, and you have some deeper muscles. We're calling your deep 6 external rotators. We're going to do some activation drills for those muscles. And the reason we're going to do that is if you're squatting, as you know, a common error when you're squatting is for your knees to dive in, and that's incorrect.
Whoa.
You don't want to do that. We want to always pull our knees out, and the muscles that pull our knees out are the muscles that I just mentioned. So if they are not strong enough, then more than likely you're going to end up with some type of knee problem, because when your knees dive in, you can see his knee here is twisting. If his upper leg is going that way and his lower leg is going that way, the same direction that his foot is going, then his knee is no longer simply bending, it's twisting at the same time. And oftentimes when you're twisting your knee, you're tearing on all the structures that are holding your knee together, like your medial meniscus, kind of the cartilage on the inside of your knee, along with your ACL and the other ligaments in your knee. But ACL specifically is probably the one that gets torn the most when your knee dives in. You see that very common in field sports, like if you're playing a basketball game or something. Like if Chris went to cut and he stepped here and his knee went in, that's when people tear their ACL when they're playing soccer or basketball or volleyball or anything, any field sport or court sport. If your knees dive toward each other, or even if it's just one knee at a time, that's generally when those ACL tears happen. So today what we want to do is expand on the last episode and talk about activation exercises we're just going to single out the glute medius today just for the purpose of conversation. But keep in mind, it's not just one muscle we're working, it's a whole group of muscles. Okay. First exercise, if we grab a band, you might have seen this before, we're going to do just a normal X-band walk. So Chris is going to take the band. You could use a slightly bigger band than this if you want to. He's going to step on it.
What, just between
His feet.
Oh, like so? Like maybe we might do this. I put between my feet like this.
Like that.
Okay.
No, not like that.
No, I mean just maybe we do this again. I just don't know what to do.
That's perfect.
Like
Keep on that.
Sorry. Step on it like this. Maybe we call these different things. And then you cross it over like that, and then you're just going to do like a step to the side. I call these X-band walks. What do y'all call them?
well, see, usually I just do them by putting the band around and it's going directly out, but that makes a lot of sense.
Right. We're going to do that one as well. All right, so X-band walks, because it's crossed over.
Look at that.
The name. Look at that.
I'm doing it.
Look at that.
Oh, it feels good,
All right, so quick points of performance here. Generally, you want your feet straight ahead. And then you're going to try to, with your upper body, not kind of go like this. No side-to-side stuff. You're trying to just stay vertical. That way you're getting
It's not a country
pure-
slide dance, right?
pure abduction with this.
No slide dancing.
All right, so the reason we're doing it like this, I just mentioned before that your knee dives in. The job of these muscles is to pull your knee out, and that's kind of more of a rotation type exercise, because this is internal rotation, this is external rotation at your hip. And in this case, he's not rotating at all, really. He's just kind of stepping straight to the side. He's just making his leg go like this. He's not doing rotation like that. That same muscle is the muscle that does a big portion of that action. That's called hip abduction. So why that's important a lot of times is anytime you're standing on one leg, this muscle is firing to keep you from falling to the inside like that. So this is an easy way to again activate that muscle and kind of get it turned on and help it strengthen if it's not very strong. So even though it's not the exact same movement pattern, it's still an effective way to kind of turn that muscle on in a way. Okay? So that's called an X-band walk. You can throw that into your warm-ups. Again, you can just do 2 or 3 sets of 8 or 10 per leg. You're not trying to go to fatigue or anything like that. You're just trying to do a little bit in your warm-up just to get that muscle to kick on, and you'll be more likely to fire effectively during your training. Another is the one that you already just showed, where you can wrap it around your knees.
Yeah, you just, for these, I'll
Do
just
that. Perfect.
create a loop with the band, go around lower leg. Yeah, then sometimes you can adjust the tension, maybe put a knot in here or whatever, or hold it. And I'll just push out and hold. In, out.
Yep, so you can do repetitions like that, or you can just do straight up static hold like Chris was showing.
And then,
Yeah, if you want, you can use a slingshot.
yeah, this is just something that's a little more, same thing, but a little more comfortable. Mark Bell's slingshot. You just toss it around. And you can do that same walking that Doug showed. Boom, boom.
Yep, slingshots are
Just
great.
much more comfortable. Won't grab your leg here. And then here, just pushing out and hold. You can also push out and hold as you do squats with that on. Nifty little device.
Yeah, we'll actually go ahead and keep that on because that's actually the next thing we're going to do.
Cool.
We're on the same page and we didn't prep for
Hey.
the show. We're talking the same stuff. Perfect. So actually, if you step forward where you're not going to hit the bench. Mm-hmm. So this is called reactive neuromuscular training, and basically what's happening is that band is pulling his knees in, so all the muscles that would try to resist that kind of automatically kick on. So if Chris does a squat with the band pulling out against his knee, he's automatically, without really even trying, he's going to push his knees out against the band.
Because if you don't actively think, it's going to pull you in.
Right. So I like this because it's hard to screw up. If you put a band around someone's knees, they're automatically going to push out against the band without even thinking about it. So there's not much of a learning curve. It just kind of automatically happens. So again, you can do this in your warm-up if you want to. You can just do like a set of 10 air squats with the band around your knees, and the band kind of automatically, again, makes those muscles fire up. If you want to do this during a workout, you still definitely could. You know, if you wanted to do something like a goblet squat where he's just going to grab the horns, like he could do all of his squats during a workout.
Whoa, hit the bench.
You could do a squat during the workout like that. You could probably do a real squat with a barbell like that. It's not very practical, really. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but goblet squats I don't think are a big deal.
Maybe your warm-up sets with empty bar, you could do it to kind of prime your form.
Yeah, if you want to just put a band around your knees and kind of walk with your knees out, keep tension on the band where it doesn't fall out, and then get into a front rack position, do some front squats. You certainly could. You know, there's no reason to ever try to do, a super heavy, 80% plus, probably even over 50% plus, with a band around your knees. But for warming up, definitely something that I think has a lot of value. The other thing that I was going to suggest was doing a farmer's walk, and I kind of demoed this before, saying that your muscles are here on the side, and when they contract, they kind of pull this piece down to this piece, which keeps you from falling this way. Okay? So if you want to have something that is easier to see rather than just on me, if this is my pelvis and that's my spine, then I kind of have my leg that sticks out kind of like that, on both sides. Okay? And the muscle kind of runs. I get a different color. That muscle's going to kind of run kind of like right there. So if I pick this leg up off the ground and it's no longer there, then my hip's going to want to drop down, and when this muscle contracts, it keeps my hip from dropping down by pulling this side together. So this here, the green muscle here, would be me on this side, if that makes any sense. Okay? So by loading myself in a single leg stance, like you would do when you're doing a yoke walk or a farmer's walk, where I just have heavy weight in my hands or on my back, every time I take a step and I pick up one leg as I transition from foot to foot, I'm in single leg stance, and this muscle has to fire really, really hard to keep my hip from dropping on the opposite side. Okay? So obviously that's something you can do carrying kettlebells. Chris just grabs 2 kettlebells. So you can do this as a part of your warm-up, just with relatively light kettlebells, and just go for a walk, down the street and back. And again, that's
See you guys later.
That's one more way to get some amount of activation for your hip, extensors, external rotators, and abductors, which are all the muscles that are kind of here on the side of your hip. Okay. So, quick review: we had X-band walks. We had putting the slingshot around your knees, where you could just hold, or you could do reps. Mm-hmm. The only point I'd make about the reps that we didn't mention before is you don't want to do reps where you're practicing getting into this terrible position. If you're going to do it like that, at a minimum, I would put my foot off the ground like that. That way, in this case, I'm not actually twisting my knee. Okay, I'm only twisting my knee if my foot stays out and my knee goes in. Now I'm twisted. But if I go like that, now everything's actually still in perfect straight alignment. I'm not twisting my knee in this case. I'm just internally rotating and externally rotating my hip against resistance. So I get the work on my hip without putting any stress on my knee. Okay? And then we also did the reactive neuromuscular training, where we put the band around our knees and just did our same air squats that we always do. And then we did the farmer's walk, carrying a dumbbell, kettlebell, dumbbell or kettlebell rather, in each hand. Beautiful?
You do that, your glutes are going to be fantastic.
True story. All right, if you want more videos like this, you can go to techniquewad.com. That'll basically forward you to barbellshrugged.com, the same place that if you click the Technique WOD tab at the top of the page, and that has all the rest of our Technique WOD videos there on the site. We'll see you another day.
And
You're
we're
about to find out.
All right,
Dude,
cool.
should we? I mean, it's a good story. I think Chris, you should tell it.
We should tell it.
Before we get to the pyramids over here,
No,
they're as tall as their bases.
One more detour.
no. Kenny was saying how Mr. Tony Hawk, sir, legendary skateboarder and hero to suburban youths all over the United States in the 80s and 90s and whatnot. We say he's in the stomping grounds here in our town of Encinitas, our new hometown.
Carlsbad, yeah.
Yeah, Carlsbad area, and it just happened to be about a year ago, a little more. We were in Las Vegas for Grid, right? Was that it?
Yeah.
And then we were like, yeah, we got all this work to do. Changing the world through Barbell Shrugged, one episode at a time. Oh, but we don't fuck doing that. Hey, CTP, you want to fuck off and go try to get a picture with Tony Hawk? He was doing an appearance, we learned through his Instagram, down the strip at the, was it MGM, CTP? There was a big conference going on way down the strip at a large casino hotel thing with franchisors and franchisees, whatever.
It was a licensing
Licensing.
convention.
Yeah, so you could, in this event, you could show up, pitch Tony Hawk, like, hey, Tony, I make dolls, whatnot. Let's make a kick-ass Tony Hawk skateboarding doll with your name on it. It'll be cool. We'll make $1 billion. What do you say? Awesome, right? You do that deal there.
Yeah.
So he's like, that's the kind of deals he's entertaining. But we show up. We sneak in under the guise that we are Barbell Shrugged.
Yeah.
We didn't lie. That's what we put down. Well, we lied on the bottom part of it. We said we are toy manufacturers of Barbell Shrugged, and it worked. Like they let us in. We're sitting there.
They gave you
totally.
like credentials, like they printed off like legit like PVC.
Legit electronic embedded like there's chips in the cards. You cannot get in without it.
Right.
Like yeah, we they're kind of like adult toys. We entertain adults. Is that true? Technically, absolutely. Yeah. So we get our badges. We fucking sneak into this big like toy. There's like Jurassic Park logos. This is legit. This is like big media stuff. And we sneak in. We go, oh shit, CDP, look, there he is, fucking Tony Hawk, standing there from his booth. A big picture of him going like, yeah, I'm fucking Tony Hawk, skateboard on his knee, looking cool. He's there. To be honest, looking pretty bored. This is the sexiest event to be attending. And as people come up to me, I go, what do I do? CDP's like, I got an idea. So I go up. I go, hey Tony, we do a podcast. You may it's iTunes. It's good, like top. Hey, listen, we're a fan. Can I get a fucking picture? We just like I completely fucking just drop it. Dude, I'm like, I'm this guy right now. Tony fucking Hawk. We look cool just now.
Dude.
Let's get out of here. High five. We fucking did it. Yay to us. Only person knows how lame we are is Tony Hawk. everybody else thinks it's fucking great.
And CTP was there too?
But hey, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, and growing up in 1980s suburbs, and like my bro's a big skateboarder, I fucking knew who the grade was.
Yeah,
I was a fan. I wasn't old enough to do this stuff. My brother had bleached hair, and we had a half pipe in our backyard, everything. Yeah, and I was fucking legit. Kind of like, oh man, this is fucking Tony Hawk right here. It was intense. That's the shortest version of the Tony Hawk story I'm prepared to tell. Yeah, I did a Barbell Buddha podcast episode on it. It was pretty
about that experience. With Tony?
Yeah, I told it all in great detail.
I almost ruined one of his video game, I guess, pitches. Like at the house that they moved into here in Encinitas. They literally hadn't moved in the house. He was using it for a meeting. I didn't know that.
Did you ever think about putting scooters in your games? Pretty cool.
So like, I don't know, but I come up and they're meeting with, I don't know which video game company. This is like 2004 or so. And so I come up the stairs in my underwear. I just woken up and they were having a real business meeting.
You didn't have an erection or anything, did you?
What's that?
You didn't have a bone or anything in the morning.
A large one. As large as I can make it.
Hey, Tony.
As large as I can make it.
And I had these boxers with piggies on them. It was really weird. Yeah.
Don't blow this house down. Go ahead, dude.
Yeah, no, that's the end of the story.
Oh, wow.
It was just super awkward. And I'm like, I'll go downstairs now. I could tell that I would ruined some business.
Coffee in the cupboard? Thanks. I'll be in the kitchen.
You had a raging boner?
I was that guy.
No, I was saying hopefully did not have a raging boner. Anyway, the pyramid, Kenny, look at that.
But I'm just amazed that you lost. No, sorry to stay on this. I know we want to get to this, but like you're so good with people that it amazes me that there was a choke shot.
That was a choke shot. Yeah, maybe now I'll be better. And also, I can guarantee you, one day one day when it happens, because I'm secret style, I'm telling the universe I want this. When Michael Jordan comes on this program, you're going to see me do it on the show. Like, listen, Michael Jordan said, remember that time you hit that shot in Cleveland? Fuck, that was a good shot, sir. You fucking beat the Cavaliers? Man, remember that time you and Isaiah Thomas, you fucking crossed over and hit that? Man, that was great. That was real good. I know. I'm fucking Michael Jordan. That's what he would say.
It's weird. There's layers. Like cruising around with you guys, like so many people are like, oh, it's you, but then there's layers. I mean, there's always layers in sort of celebrity.
There's layers where me and CTP will get on our knees, not in a gay way or anything, but like to say, Michael Jordan, we love you. We love everything you achieved on the court. Your personal things aside and all that, you're my hero still. I'm 34. I'm practicing every day in my backyard, just trying maybe one day to play horse with you. Sir, do you think in my backyard right now, after we shoot the show, we'll do horse? One day.
One day. You guys ever been nervous with? Yeah, you guys are. You're good.
Well, not on you, Kenny.
I've never been nervous.
No. Right?
Never been nervous.
No, but I mean, with people's.
Sometimes it
Randy
happens.
Couture made me a little nervous.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like in 2006.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2006, 2007.
Okay.
But that's probably the last time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Doug, I don't feel like you
Not
get
around,
too.
not around celebrities.
Yeah.
I don't have any celebrities that are like my hero, like my hero my whole life, that type
Yeah.
of thing. I never really had that.
Yeah.
And anyone that I met that I thought was kind of cool, because they weren't my hero. It was just kind of like, hey, nice to meet you.
Right.
And most of the time, it's like it's like someone that's like super, super famous. It's like I'm at an event and everyone knows they're there and there's like a line and it's like everyone's like supposed to go up and just be like hello and then like take the photo.
Right.
So I'm not nervous in that situation. But if I just like saw someone like Randy Couture like at the grocery store and I was like, I'm gonna go talk to that dude.
Right.
Like Randy doesn't count necessarily because I used to train at his gym for a long
Right.
time and whatnot. I met that guy many times. But someone else that's like similar caliber,
Right.
super famous. If
Right.
I was to walk up to him all by myself, in that case, yeah, I'd probably be a little nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous when I met Kane at the CrossFit Games last year. Christmas, Abbott was like, you got to meet this guy. I was like, man, I don't know. He's pretty intimidating.
Saw him in Tahoe. He made me laugh for 45 minutes straight. Side stitches.
We're going to do a hard stop, and we are going to talk about the stuff on the board.
So
Tell us what that stuff is.
I'm so glad to be here. So we got talking during the mastermind conversation this week about like what's happening sort of in the fitness industry.
The mastermind.
And one of the biggest concerns that I had in about 2012 going into 2013 was how people were approaching CrossFit. And that was that if you look at the original pyramid of fitness that Glassman put out 10 plus years ago, it's pretty profound, pretty simple, and extremely elegant. Like at the top of it, he's got sport, which is sort of what we're supposed to use the thing to train for. And then underneath that, you should be able to handle some external load, throw some things around. Underneath that, you should be able to handle your body with gymnastics and have some general body control. Underneath that, let's hope that your heart and ticker are working so that you wake up every morning and you're able to oxygenate your blood and move around. Underneath that, he put nutrition, and I thought like as a base of a fitness pyramid, that's like brilliant.
This is where the gelato goes.
What's that?
This is where the gelato goes.
This is where the gelato goes. And then so in the sort of sport element, one of the things that I was noticing somewhere like at the tail end of 2010, 2011, and 2012 especially, like this pyramid basically got flipped upside down. So the prioritization suddenly shifted. So the sport suddenly wasn't necessarily the sport of life, going out to play with the kids explicitly or picking up a surfboard or going mountain biking or skiing or whatever. It suddenly became like the sport of exercise.
Right.
And as media started to pay attention to that, so did the rest of us, so did all of us coaches. I fell into that. I started programming really hard for people that wanted to be regional level athletes. And then, underneath that, there's using weightlifting and throwing for conditioning. And for an advanced athlete, that may be extraordinarily appropriate. But for the general population, I would say probably not necessarily so.
Right.
And that started to concern me as a coach to a community and a thought leader in fitness. Is like, look, this is starting to, get where CrossFit as a brand doesn't necessarily want to associate with injuries, but the marketization and the expression of how CrossFit's coached and programmed is under the priority of fitness sport. And that would imply that, okay, yeah, let's say that you have some control of your body, but not necessarily prioritizing that.
Right.
We're more concerned about the metrics of the sport of fitness and who's the best and what are they doing and what can we do to replicate that, when that is, in my view, very inappropriate for the general population, especially for what the original sort of intent of the whole thing was.
The population in general should be building foundations, skills,
man,
of movement.
skills. Yeah. And then underneath, this, like the metabolic conditioning was for the advanced athlete, that was getting taken care of by these sort of advanced maneuvers.
Yeah.
Underneath that, nutrition basically got inverted because you've got genetic freaks who can, in many cases, do whatever they want nutritionally, and some of them are so, energy consumptive that that they can put literally just about anything.
They can put 7,000 calories in and they're going to burn it up.
First thing I thought of, like Michael Phelps' story of like McDonald's meals, just to try to offset the calories he was burning.
Absolutely,
in training,
right? And so suddenly this thing gets flipped. 2011, 2012, 2013, and I'm looking at that going, where did this go? And the prioritization of what I call the physical on the original sort of pyramid, that this priority on the physical and just being the best at that became the sort of the priority. And what sort of concerned me is that there was no sort of layer of context underneath that. And so what I did is I developed a training methodology that says, look, this is a brilliant and very elegant description of how physical fitness should be expressed for the majority of the population.
Makes more sense than the food guide pyramid. Say that shit right now.
But underneath that, what's missing for me is the context. And we sort of referred to this a little bit earlier, but that is, what I qualify as the mental and the emotional components of training and exercise. And so if context is off or misaligned, then the sort of intent or the objective of what it is you're trying to do will also be misaligned. So, if you're looking at like the average person, developing some mastery of the basic skills takes a lifetime. The human being moves in 7 ways. And like if you're not focused on coaching those 7 ways, somebody's going to make a mistake in one of the lines somewhere. And
so what are those 7 ways?
Well, so let's talk about it. You got your running, you got your jumping, you got your squatting, you got your pulling, you got your push. I kind of condense pushing and pressing.
You got your shimmy.
Together.
Where your shimmy fit in?
Well, the shimmy can be kind of a quasi twist and rotate.
Oh, gotcha.
And depending on how much you shimmy, it can also be a flex and extend. So
mine
it depends
looks pretty
on your
quasi
style.
too.
But those would be that would be the 7. So if you want to get some more flexion and extension into it, that's totally up to you.
And
but
great
again,
mobilization drill before training. Look at
it's
you.
very great. Let's try it. Right. So we go.
I don't want to get that on camera. Don't get me shaking my chest on camera.
So if
what are the 7?
Okay, so you got
before Chris derails you again.
we'll
See if we
get
can
there.
make
So
it all
just
the way
as
through.
bad this episode as me.
we got running, right? So it's a basic foundational thing. Somebody could throw swimming in there, but you could apply all the 6 that I'm going to mention and say that somewhere
Say
in the
locomotion, maybe.
Well, no. So you got running, you got your squat, right? You've got your pushing and pressing. You got your pulling. You got your flexing and extending, and you got your twisting and rotating. And so those can be
And jumping.
And I said that the first time, but not the second time. And so there's your 7. And if somebody invents an 8th, I would love to meet that person. But no matter what you're doing physically,
I think we could do it tonight.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Later, I'll turn the lights
Eating.
in here red. We'll find a solution to that. We'll find extra layers of experience.
Dude, that could be your orb experience.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Barbell Buddha goes.
Better Saturday night, man.
Dude.
Hey, man, that was crazy last night, right? I know that floating orb. All right?
Totally.
Fuck, man, I
I
came out of
developed
nowhere.
the 8th movement.
Yeah.
Dude, that would be next.
It's fair to point out that these 7 things you're talking about, everybody has to work on this their whole life. Right?
Everybody. Like, my wife is an Olympic level runner, and she's not done with that basic maneuver. That's genetically programmed.
Yeah.
Like jumpers, like Olympic lifter. I mean, one movement, and let alone we're combining them all with average populations that aren't genetic freaks with a little bit of coaching.
It's great context,
and
yeah.
So if we break that down and go, look, if we bring it back and say at some point we need to practice. Like a lot of this has to be practiced. And when you're practicing things, there has to be some sort of mental and emotional modulation. Like you can't just attack that. There has to be some sort of process of learning. And that's sort of universal. Some people are faster than others, but just a context of slowing somebody down and go, look, you got to practice this maneuver until you're good at it.
As opposed to pushing the intensity all the time, thinking that I got to go in here and whatever's assigned, I got to hit it as hard as I can.
Totally.
That's
And
not necessary.
Totally. And with the preoccupation of what became king and champion, suddenly so many people within gyms everywhere started to focus on that aspect, that intensity aspect, when their sort of form and mechanics didn't, push them in that direction that they should be. On top of that, all the stuff that we'd mentioned before, like the typical hormonal shifts that most people are going through every single day with different stressors affecting them in sometimes minor, sometimes profound ways, will necessarily affect your physicality and also like your psychological engagement. And I love to refer to it as like, an emotional Yosemite Sam. Like there's so many gyms that I saw people have 18-month members with, and these members would come in, and if you talk to gym owners across the country, you can diagram this statistically, like how long is this average membership?
Yeah.
Somebody comes in for 18 months, they go hard in the paint, bang, 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 Yosemite style, and then they're fucking burnt out.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, wait, this was a lifetime program, right? No, they're back at spin class, they're back at yoga. Not that
But fuck that. I'm never doing that
totally.
again, right?
They're done. They've shot their emotional bullets.
Is this the negative side of people talk a lot of shit about what's going on in modern fitness gyms? Is this where it's coming from too much intensity too quick? Nothing wrong with what you're doing, just too much of the same random mix all the time without the foundation.
I think that the intensity without the foundation is flawed. And also just analyzing people and having that, like, as a coach, there's some artisanship of coaching human beings. You gotta. Joe Douglas was the coach of Santa Monica Track Club. He was Carl Lewis's coach. I had interviewed him for my podcast, my last podcast, and he told me he used to look in the whites of his athletes' eyes before he would program for the day. And that to me says so much, because he could just look at an athlete and kind of go, I know where they're at, and I know
How many pull hits did you take before you came to jump to the track today? Carl Lewis. Oh man, late night last night. Bro. Oh, that stanky stinks.
So and this is,
come on, Carl, take a joke. Sorry,
but this is a coach he had 64 American records and 37 world records. So when I'm learning from a coach of that pedigree and going, okay, now clearly he's an expert at biomechanics, he's an expert at physiology, he's an expert at understanding adaptations. But it wasn't at a certain point you bend the curve, you understand all that becomes part of your matrix flow. The next level is being able to coach people where they're at. And so within that, I developed like an algorithm to sort of protect communities. And the algorithm basically says, look, we're going to retest in 5 different energetic domains, or 3 different energetic domains, and then 2 sort of floaters. In other words, on day 1, you do a glycolytic test. On day 2, you do a phosphogenic test. On day 3, you do an oxidative test. Day 4, sometimes you can mix it up. You can do a barbell composition workout, or you can do a lactate threshold, which is more theoretical for the sort of physiology geeks out there. And then the 5th day would be sort of a body weight composition. So how you're handling, and then you can do
heavy, light, slow, fast, body weight, barbells. You're testing everything.
And
see
then
where the weaknesses are.
Yes, and then so the student population then can say, A, I want to focus on these movements within these domains, or B, like I want to have breadth of fitness and be able to test and then retest 12 weeks later all these things and find out how much I improved. And so I developed an algorithm by just basically locking myself in an apartment for 2 weeks and just getting all my legal pads all over and putting it up on a whiteboard, and then
Perfect Mind style.
Yeah, it was just like I literally couldn't stop once I started.
Beautiful Mind, sorry.
I couldn't stop putting this thing together, going, I'm going to find out some kind of formula to be able to prioritize different movements. So, like, let's say the way the algorithm works is you pick your priorities, and then those priorities have principles of adaptation. So that's your starting point. And then within that, you go, how many exposures are you going to allow your population, and what limitations of volume are you going to allow as well? And so those are what I call the rules. And so that is the foundation of the algorithm. And so the algorithm basically spits out the movements that you do on all the different practice days during the cycle. And so what that does is it allows the student population to get consistent exposure to the movements rather than just hopper method, like you're going to adapt. Hope you have good coaches. You know, it's like, no. Let's stay consistent and disciplined about repeating these movements, because why?
That's when you learn.
It's when you learn. And you can nobody can ever perfectly execute a push-up, an air squat, or a pull-up. There is, in the most advanced athletes, there's always a great coach can probably find one thing, just physically, and then mentally and emotionally. That's where to me, like, profound coaching and life impact comes. And so, but that you can't deliver if you don't have context. You have no leverage as a coach if you have no context to step into. So when you were coaching classes under this methodology, you go, look, here's the priority. This is why we're doing what we're doing. We're consistently exposing you to these movements. And as a student of this coach, I'm asking you to bring down your intensity, bring up your mental intensity on what it is we're doing in the moment. Continue to repeat this, execute this with some discipline, and evolve your movement. Because in the end, the application of these movements, it's what's going to help you as a human being for your entire lifetime. So what I'm talking about is like a longevity program with an emotional practice that resembles life. Because within our formula, it's like 60% of the days are practice days. So that allows for that consistency, but not that Yosemite Sam stuff that I was talking about. Then I have the competition days where it's like, these are the days that you gotta bring the heat, and like, let's see what you have. We've been working on these things. Now we're going to put them together in a test of your fitness. Let's see where you're at. You got to bring it, between the ears, and you got to bring it from the heart. And then the final piece is what we call mental toughness days. And we might switch that, that I borrow from my mentor, Mark Devine, who you guys have talked to. And the mental toughness days are about that sort of predetermining who you are before the workout starts. So it's in many ways, it's the development of character. So if you look at the scope of the program for a lifetime, the mental toughness days are an opportunity to go, this thing is going to be difficult. I'm going to step into it and predetermine who I am and what characteristics I want to represent as a human being, and I will not be swayed from that. And
so there's long reps on the track, like push yourself into dark places to find out what you are.
Totally. Dig yourself out of the hole. Go there. Discover new layers of yourself. But I honestly don't believe in any best practice thing that I've ever seen in sport, the model of hard, where there's not the process. There has to be some sort of disciplined martial arts, sort of like execute, not good enough. Let's repeat. Let's get this good. Let's get this right.
A lot of your approach to training is informed by your experience in martial arts.
Oh, this is completely informed by like a lot of Mark Devine, a lot of martial arts, and also just looking at athletes of any program that's ever worked. I mean, you're always working, always tinkering on something, but you're not doing that at 100%. Mentally, you might be, but that's where the mental intensity needs to be. But providing that mental intensity with physical intensity all the time, I don't think for the average person is sustainable. And who are we? We're leaders of fitness for the average person. Yeah. So, like, to me, the conversation has to evolve to a place where we're talking on deeper levels with our athletes and clients. Like, look, this is not, if I'm running you against the wall every day, we're not going to be here in 6 months, and I'm not going to be your coach. And this is meant to be a lifetime relationship where we're developing together. And that's the principle of this sort of methodology, is to look at this and go, look, we have an opportunity to learn from this. As amazing as what we're watching, and I jokingly said, hey, we left when the true forms came out, but as remarkable and as unbelievable as that is, at some point that's not who we're really trying to affect. We're trying to get people right to go out and do their lives very healthily. And within this context is like this pyramid, to me, is the physical, which is, what is the physical? 20, 30, 40%. But in this mental and emotional development, that I put the word infinite there because to me, that's infinite fitness. Like, yeah, maybe your metrics will, with age and time, maybe decline. But if you're mentally on it and if you've got your heart in the right place, you're going to continue to evolve with that disciplined physical practice over the arc of time. And that's what I'm really like about with this methodology is like, look, this is meant to be long term, and we need to be doing these 7 movements for as long as and keep working on little nuances. And as boring as that may be, but sometimes we can create some excitement by having a competition workout or having a mental toughness day and varying it, but that represents the variation of life. It's not every day we just go hard. There's a lot of people I think that would disagree with me on that. Like, you gotta go hard every day. Like, that's a man's life. And I'm like, at what point do you
I think
work
you should
on
Spartan
something?
the fuck up. How about that?
You
Spartan the fuck up. No, it's like people chase the inverted pyramid because they want performance. But the funny thing is, you get happy, you get satisfaction, sustainability from the other model you're pitching, but you also get the performance from that because setting it up appropriately is how you get it.
Totally. And with our model, with the test retest, it's like, look, we're helping average populations just get better, and we're not, and the thing is like, you got to put that in the hands, to me, of the coach. Where like this methodology requires so much of a head coach or somebody who's programming that understands the population and can look at a thread like, look, my community sucks at pull-ups, so I don't want to think about that in this first cycle. I want to think about that. We got to develop this over 5 cycles, which is a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, but think about that with like, okay, that's going to be a principle that we're going to follow, and I know that with mastery will only come with exposure and time, and you have to talk the people out of the trees at some point and go, guys, I know, I fell in love with the same thing, that euphoric feeling that these high intensity workouts give us, but at some point, if we're not working on it, on the basics, the foundations, something's going to slip, something's going to go, and we're not going to be able to come back to fight another day. And so that's the conversation that I'm really interested in having, is like being able to come back and have some up here. And now we just started. We did our first seminar last October, and we're going to offer another one this October. If people want to check it out, they can email Matt at CrossFit LA. We're going to have our website up in August. I'm not sure when this episode's going up, but the website for all this will be
this
up.
week.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Yeah, so
next week.
Yeah, so all this stuff is going up. But in the meantime, if somebody wants to reach out to us, you can email Matt at CrossFit LA.
Mike got tickled.
It doesn't matter. This one isn't sure that's coming out.
Mike, what happened?
You almost got to the very end and the wheels fell off.
It's okay.
Oh, we brain farted together.
So, any questions?
Dude, you did a great job explaining that.
Man, I was like, yeah, context, man. All right.
I'm curious about this algorithm.
Okay.
Like I want to. So every 5th day, it sounds like once a week you're doing a competition, and then once a week you're doing.
Yeah. So this is how it will look. I don't know if I have enough space, but I'll erase the pyramid that we want to get away from, unless you're a games athlete.
This guy over.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, talk it out, Kenny, for the iTunes listeners.
What's that?
Make sure you talk it out for the iTunes listeners as well.
Okay. If you're on iTunes,
Go to YouTube.
So
Barbellshrugged.com. See the video there.
So P equals practice days if you're on iTunes, and those equal 60% of the training days. Competition days, so that's C, equals 30%, and mental toughness days, as we're calling them now, equal 10%. And I write this Monday through Friday. On the weekends at our gym at CrossFit LA, we completely go off. We do something completely different than this. And that, again, is just for the undulation of the student experience.
Yeah.
So there's some diversity and all that. And so for our, we have a very sort of average population, as I'm sure most CrossFit gym owners have. It's meant to have that sort of organic fluctuation, which is precisely what we're after. But on the practice days, this is where the algorithm is executed. On the competition days, the way that that we generally do it is about 50% of the competition days are movements that we're working on in the algorithm, and then the other 50% of the competition days are something that we have not been doing.
So you're balancing novelty with repetition and practice.
Exactly. So there's still some Hopper-esque quality to it, and some, be prepared for the unknown and unknowable.
But progression as well.
But progression as
well.
well. So it's balanced. It's very balanced that way. And the mental toughness is 10%. So if you were to look at like 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What I would do is I'd say, okay, this is a practice day. Monday's a practice day. Wednesday's a practice day. Friday's a practice day. And then the next week, I'd say Tuesday's a practice day. And then Thursday and Friday are practice days. So what that means is I have 4 other days to fill in. So I'd go, all right, well, this is a competition day, Tuesday of week 1, and then Thursday of week 1 is also going to be a competition day. Then on the Monday of the following week, we know that we've got, it's because it's 10%, we got 1 mental toughness workout. So you put an MT day there, and then that also means that you've got 1 competition day left. So now you've got 10 days representing 100% of this algorithm. And so there's the experience. And what this does is for gyms that have memberships that come on different days or consistent days, it sort of solves that sort of market problem, right? Because if you only were to have your competition days on Mondays and Wednesdays, there are people who come on Tuesdays and Thursdays and they would never get that experience.
That's right.
So you want to change in the algorithm.
If they always come Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You keep it constantly changing throughout the week too.
So
I like that, yeah.
So I look at this, and so the algorithm works like this. Within a 3-month cycle, that means you have 18 days to program. And then the movements replicate themselves the second 6 weeks of the program. So you would multiply this grid by 3 times, and you would sort of make sure that these practice, competition, and mental toughness days are falling on different days.
Yeah.
Because you want to get, you want to keep switching it up.
A template that keeps a structure to how each month sort of unfolds.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's a rotating balance in these stimulus.
There's a lot of structure and a lot of fluctuation simultaneously. And so the algorithm, again, that's completely dictated by the coaching staff developing their Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday tests. So you want a glycolytic. An example would be Fran. Okay, give me 2 barbell movements or 2 phosphogenic movements that you'd want to see on Tuesday. Anybody? Come on, you guys.
Power cleans.
Okay, so PC, and then I need to give me a strength lift, just raw lift.
Deadlift.
Okay, DL. Okay, so I would immediately identify this if I was problem solving, because I've gone through the algorithm. I'd go, look, we're pulling twice, so I'd probably go, let's change one of these to, I'd probably change this to a squat, front or back. But regardless, let's just keep it there. And then, not that you're wrong, Doug, at all. It just so.
Come on, Doug.
So Wednesday, give me a couple metabolic conditioning movements, and it can be kettlebell, double under,
Kettlebell swings, double
walking
lunges,
walk around the block with
KB,
family.
Okay, what did you say? KB lunges,
kettlebell
KB
swings, walking lunges,
Okay.
Bear curls.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And then Thursday, we do lactate threshold. So for those that don't know, that's, an energetic system somewhere around 10 minutes, -2, +2. But it's sort of, using lactic acid as energy, more theoretical than we necessarily know a lot about. But there's a lot of workouts that are I love that time domain just to test people. The other thing that I can do here is a barbell complex of some kind. So I'll mix that up. So I'll just put BBC, and that can mean different things to different people. In the context here, it is barbell complex. And then Friday is, you can do anything from Cindy to Barbara, or you can write your own. I know that those that are going to YouTube, sorry, I was a teacher for many years, and this is how it's been for any of my students out there. It's always and will continue to be messy. Anyway, the Friday is a gymnastics basic combination. So within this, you look at Fran, you go, okay, we're addressing a pull-up and we're addressing effectively a front squat and an overhead press. Okay, it's a thruster. So then this gives you a certain number of movements. From that, you go, we've got X amount of movements that we're going to expose our people to. Within that, you as coaches, and this is what we do in the seminars, help coaches understand how to prioritize what's appropriate for their populations and teach them like the next part of this, which is that's the key part. It's like, how do I identify how am I going to advance my population? But the biggest thing is looking at fundamentally balance, because you could very easily have Diane here, right, deadlifts and handstand push-ups, and come back and do 2 more pulls on this day, and then you got kettlebell swings. Okay, now we're starting to get redundant with that sort of that style of movement. We're starting to pull a lot, and that posterior chain 3 days in a row. Should there be some undulation? And there are times to be redundant with the movements if you're thinking ahead, and there are times when not to be. But when we first teach people, we say, look, we're seeking balance, especially your first 3 cycles. So as you go through the week, you start to figure out what are the movements, how are we keeping them balanced. So if you're going to do a barbell complex, you certainly don't want to be too repetitive of anything that you're seeing earlier in the week. And what that does is that guarantees a variety of movements that the students are exposed to and getting different stimulus. And again, you're covering the simple 7. So it's not like the sort of the way that we are all sort of taught, like, let's make sure that we're matching gymnastics with weightlifting.
Right.
It's more like identify your population's needs, create some balance, create some diversity, and then within this you can create scales. Like I had for the progression, I looked at like 1 year, like one thing that our student population is not good at is muscle ups and snatches. Like that's just not the we have an average population of 38. They're coming in, they're high level professionals that come to CrossFit LA. They're not like 22-year-olds like, I can't wait to, hit a 100-kilo snatch. It's like that really, it doesn't matter, but we had to progress that development. And so my goal was like, look, what if we can get a couple of students to RX Amanda, and then the rest of the time people could look at the application of the muscle up. So I went, well, what does that look like? Well, we suck at pull up, so we got to develop the pull up, so that's going to progress eventually to the muscle up. Then I used a lot of Carl's progressions in the 3rd cycle and going, look, the way the muscle up's taught is you're in a hollow position, which is a very important aspect of flexion, and then at some point you hit extension if you've got bands underneath the rings and support. So now 2 really critical, flexion and extension in human movements. Let's get good at those. And then severe flexion as you flip yourself over with a pull of the leg. And so even for our population that practice and will never get, and even if they practice to infinity, will never achieve a muscle up, the teaching of this and the exposure was applicable as movement lessons and skills. So we as a gym, it pushed us as coaches to go, because what gym with average populations wants to teach muscle ups? But then you have to break the movements down and go, where's the value in the movements? The movements is in the basics. The basics everybody should be able to do. If your population can't do the basics, you're doing something really horrifically wrong. So like break down advanced movements and have them stay in that modification, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so then we got this population to that we were actually able to get a couple people.
But I want to do muscle up.
Right. And so we work it on that basic flexion. And then for you, as we progress, that might even turn into a pull-up, which would be huge for the person that says, I want to do, and they're disconnecting. Then for the person that's impatient.
I saw it on the internet. I want to muscle up right now.
For that person, we come back to the gravy of the coaching, which is context, because then you have leverage over the student and say, look, this is all about, like, you're not there yet. We got to work on these foundational basics to get you there. Yeah. And that's a powerful conversation because it allows non-fire breather coaches to affect fire breathers. So even advanced students can be coached by people who would formerly go look at their coach and go, I'm better than this guy. I don't need to listen.
Right.
This is a 47-year-old soccer mom trying to teach me something. And now I'm in class. I developed this methodology. Now I'm not like the world's greatest CrossFit or anything, but I'm in, and all my coaches, I'm listening to them again, which is awesome because I'm a student in the class, and I know that these basics, Kenny Kane has a lot of work to do ad infinitum. And I can go to my own classes in my own gym and go, I need to work on the basics again and again and again and again. And I can appreciate that.
We all do, man.
Yeah.
We all do.
So, this is the thing. Did that answer sort of the question on the structure of the algorithm?
That was great.
And that's how it's founded.
I think people are going to leave this and go, oh, okay, I can play with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I'm more than happy if people are like thinking, because that's what I want to change. I want to change the way that we think about how we coach. Coaching coaches is what, that's what I want to do, because I feel like if we can coach the coaches are the people that are going to change the world.
I'm afraid almost people will look at the algorithm and get caught up in that, but going back to context is use the algorithm, but communicate to the athletes the context in which you're doing that day.
I think a really simple way to look at it is to go, look, I'm going to provide you with absolute science, but I'm going to guide you as an artisan coach.
Yeah.
So it's where science
Artisanal
meets
coaching,
art.
I like that.
Yeah, it combines the two things. And I might have mentioned this on the last, podcast. Like, there's a big discrepancy. You got your cheerleader coaches, and then you got your technicians. Technicians are boring as hell, but motivators can be as annoying as hell. And what we're looking for is a balance of the two, and that's what I call a coach. Somebody who can do both. Are you a master technician, even for people that are better than you, doing things that you will never do?
Yeah.
And can you affect them in the right place mentally and emotionally? And that's the art. And so, this platform allows for the coach to communicate this in sophisticated, ways. So,
Man, that's why we let David be the head coach of Faction, because he is that blend. Out of almost all the people I've ever met, technician and motivator, that combination of the two, where a lot of people are very one-sided, fucking David's the man on blending those together and being very good at both.
And you can see it when somebody is that as both, like, that, and that's that's huge for
That
a
guy's
population.
both. Look at him. He's built strong.
That's cool, and that's how you guys knew, though, too. Was that intuitive, or was it something that concrete that you thought about?
It was very obvious very quickly when David came onto the team.
It wasn't like hard to see. It was like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like he'd been there for like 3 months, and it was we could tell. Yeah.
So this is meant for those people that want to just develop their coaching acumen to another level. And again, if you're coaching Infinite Fitness, I mean, listen, if you're in this for just sheerly monetary reasons, like if you're coaching people between the ears and into the hearts, like that's the longevity of your market too. I mean, that's a very powerful conversation.
But building real relationships with people.
Exactly.
Builds a kind of a two-way street and a value exchange that's really beyond just you made them stronger, they gave you a little dough for it or whatever.
Totally.
You'll always be more successful when you get a client for life.
Totally.
A client for like 3 months, and then they got to go do something else because they don't like you or they're injured or whatever. If you have someone for 30 years,
totally.
You don't have to worry about finding more people for your gym.
What's really great about all these ideas about what you've recommended coaching, how you would structure the pyramid, keep context. This seems like you would apply, you get good at this, and everything in your life would kind of fall in line, because this is how you should approach probably everything, laying out appropriate expectations, knowing that there's a series of events that will happen this week, this month, then next month, and after that, these effects will stack and build.
Yeah, and that's the exact same thing. Is like I look at this as a correlate to life and a correlate to the sport of life. Like, this is very directly related to sports, and to me it resembles life to a T. Somebody could say, "Well, I want 20% or what." Like,
I mean, the algorithm looks like something I would apply to business or to my personal life. Is like, this day is not going to be like go hard in the paint day.
Right.
This day is going to be more play around with this over here, or take a day off, or
we said the
practice.
Key in recent years is you learn how to keep certain days devoted to certain things. Not every day is like I'm going to fucking crush it in business or life or whatever.
Yeah, there's certain days that don't take phone calls.
Right.
And that's and there's days where it's nothing but phone calls. And I think that there's probably a million different ways you could apply this type of thinking.
It's funny, when we were talking at Mastermind this week, I realized, especially with that group that we had assembled, I was like, this is very applicable in dimensions beyond. Really, this is not CrossFit and functional fitness. This is just scratching the surface. To me, this is a coaching application for a much broader thing. So, listen, if you want to come to the seminar, email Matt at CrossFit LA, and we'll have all the website and all the stuff up about this in about a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah. Well, where can people find you other than that?
Okay, so listen, another thing that came up this week is that I was schooled. Like, I was tore apart by everybody there because they're like, KK.
Where were you? You keep saying Mastermind, but I don't think anyone's clued in.
Okay, so you guys haven't talked about that?
No.
All right. So
not with this audience, no.
So this last week I spent with these three and the crew at Barbell Shrugged at Barbell Mastermind. So we populated a mansion in the mountains and figured out how
orange trees everywhere.
There
Very
was
beautiful view.
avocado trees, and we had breakout sessions on what we can contribute and what we can learn from one another. So there was some pretty extraordinary people swapping some pretty brilliant ideas.
We had a killer group, man. We had Brian McKenzie and Travis Mash and Christmas Abbott and Diane Fu, and the list
AJ
goes on and on and on.
Roberts.
AJ Roberts, for sure.
It was an
an awesome group.
It was a really powerful group, man. And so one of the things that I got schooled on and that I am just now learning is that I apparently everybody was like, Kenny, you've got a good message. You might want to do something to get it out there.
Might be a good idea, Kenny.
And I am notoriously bad at social media. However, after this last week and getting tore apart, I'm committed to both developing my Instagram, and you can find me at the Kenny Kane, and also my Twitter, also at the Kenny Kane.
There you go. You made them the same. Good job.
Yeah. So it's simple.
Round
So
of
that was,
applause for
yeah. There are other.
You can find me at
Rare.
Kenny Kane _1984
Right.
/
No, both at the Kenny Kane. So please hit me up. Also, you can email Matt directly. We have a limited number of spots for the seminar we're going to do in the fall. But yes, with the help of this group, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the future, and I'm real stoked to be on, but share this with the world because I think this can help
I'm
a
stoked
lot
to
of
see
people.
this get out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if someone's cruising through LA, they can stop in your gym.
They need to
take
stop.
drop-ins.
We listen. If you guys are out there,
He
and
hates
come by.
drop-ins, I heard.
Please. Well, it does
He
depend.
doesn't like people. This
Hey,
guy.
show me
It's
your
weird.
context.
So you know what's interesting?
So you want the Barbell Shrugs?
This is the interesting thing is that like if we get people who don't understand like our philosophy and they only understand sort of CrossFit in the sort of traditional sense, they come and they'll hit like a practice day, just they're hauling ass, and the coaches are like, hey, you might want to work on your lockout, or okay, you're out the door for the run. Hey, on this next round, there's this thing, this extension. Just love to see you get it. Like, okay, maybe when you come back on this next time. Okay, you're
Maybe
out
want
again.
to finish one of those reps.
Anyway,
Maybe 1 out of the 100 you do,
Totally.
you'll finish.
So there are times where if somebody doesn't necessarily get it, and then after we go, hey, if you come back for another class, by the way, like the depth of what we offer is pretty cool. Like maybe you could check that out also when you come to class next time.
Yeah, it'd be so cool if you would listen to me. All right.
Totally. But
There's nothing more annoying than like an athlete that just won't stop what they're doing. Like you almost feel like you have to physically put your hands on them to like, no, seriously, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big part of this. But listen, I would love to have any of the viewers out come by CrossFit Los Angeles. We're the 9th gym to ever open in the CrossFit world, so we've done a lot of things wrong, we've done a lot of things right, but we continue to learn and adapt. That's for sure. So,
Chop wood, carry water.
yeah,
Kenny.
that's it, man.
Oh yeah.
That's it. True.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Word. Good stuff, dudes.
Join the conversation every week after the episode over at barbellshrug.com. This is also where you'll find new episodes of Barbell Shrugged, Technique Wad, Nuggets and Pearls, Barbell Business, Get Change, plus new articles every day on our daily blog, written by us, guests of the show, and some of the biggest names in strength and conditioning. So, go there and leave a comment now.
Oh my gosh, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, that's so awesome.
Did you like this video? If so, subscribe to our channel and share this with your friends.
And if you want even more free, awesome resources to help you reach your fitness goals, plus some updates that we only share over email, head over to barbellshrug.com and sign up for the newsletter.